guys, and welcome back to another video. If you're anything like me, you probably have a few empty notebooks lying around and you're not really sure what to do with them. Well, today I thought we'd discuss some journal ideas. So ways just to fill up those empty notebooks, but also ways to help with anxiety. The first one that I'd recommend is a gratitude journal. Now, this one's kind of the easiest one to do because all you have to do is write 3 things that you're grateful for in a day. So the reason that this helps is because instead of just thinking about the stuff that makes you anxious and the stuff that you're worried about, you get a chance to see what you're excited about and what you're grateful for, what's good in your life. And focusing on the good rather than the bad will actually reduce your anxiety. Those 3 things that you're grateful for at the end of the day, they don't have to be big things. They can be the little things, the stuff that really actually matters. It can be, that you've managed to have breakfast, lunch and dinner. It might be that you've got a roof over your head, or you're glad that you've got a certain person in your life. Or you're glad that a certain song's been released that you're enjoying. Everybody has different things that make them happy and that they're grateful for. But the idea is you look for what's really made you happy within a day and what there is that's good in your life right now. When you're doing your gratitude journal, you should try and find 3 different things every day. Now that can be a little bit challenging to start with, especially if you're in like a negative headspace, but it makes a big difference because rather than going, oh well, I'm grateful for this, which, I'm grateful that I got out of bed today, I'm grateful that I went to school, I went to work, and I'm grateful that I had food. If you put that every day, it's not really going to make you feel that grateful, actually. It just looks like your life's really repetitive. So the idea is that you kind of look for the little things and try to find the different ones. Now, the reason that helps is because down the line, if you're having a really down moment, anxiety can often, it's often coupled with depression because you feel really hopeless. Like, anxiety causes your life to just be turned upside down. And when that happens, you just don't really know what to do with yourself. And then you become more isolated from people. You feel like you just can't live your life normally or how you used to live it or how you'd like to live it, which can then bring that onset of depression. So if you're having a really, really down moment, having a gratitude journal is a fantastic tool because it is inspirational and motivational. You look back at it and you see how many good things there are in your life when you feel like there are none. You see, well actually, yeah, life, although it might not feel great now, it is pretty good. And then it also it inspires you. You read it and you go, yeah, this is good. I'm going to focus on the good and I'm going to push myself and I'm going to get out of this rut. Those are the kind of benefits of having a gratitude journal. Now, another good journal idea is a worry diary, which I have mentioned in a previous video. The idea of a worry diary is that you have 30 minutes in a day to write down all your worries. That's the time that you have to just sit there, think about everything you're worried about, write it down. Once that 30 minutes is up, you close the book, you put it away, you focus on the good stuff. It's obviously easier said than done because it takes some training to get yourself into that headspace of, okay, now I'm not worried anymore. A worry diary didn't really work for me a lot in terms of reducing my anxiety because for me it was always triggered by a specific situation, like being in a library. So if I wasn't in a library, there wouldn't really be anything that I was worried about. So having that dedicated half an hour a day didn't really work because I'd only be in the library for a specific reason, not to sit and write a worry diary. So it doesn't work for everybody, but I think it's more helpful for generalized anxiety disorder and, things that are more like when you're anxious most of the time because of certain worrisome thoughts. It's also a great way to have that kind of physical association with worries. You know, people don't always do a worry diary, but what they do is they write a list of their worries or a list of their fears, rip the page out, scrunch it up, throw it in the bin. So they are literally throwing their worries away. Depends what works for you. I haven't tried that myself, but I can imagine it is therapeutic. So that's definitely something that's worth trying. Something that I did try though was morning pages. The idea behind that is that every morning when you get up, you write 3 pages in a notebook about anything you want. So it can be like a recap, it could be a story idea that you have, it could be whatever's going through your mind, or it could be complete nonsense. It doesn't really matter. The point is that you're just writing. A lot of people use it like for writer's block because you're forcing yourself to write no matter what. And it can be a bit tricky actually, because to write 3 pages for me, it took about half an hour every morning, which meant I'd have to get up a little bit earlier. And not just half an hour earlier, because I would be half asleep. So I'd have to kind of reshuffle my schedule in order to get up early enough to write and have time and not be rushed to then get ready. However, it didn't take me too long, like 3 to 4 weeks, for you to actually get into a kind of routine where you're up and writing. So that's something that is quite therapeutic actually, and it's great to just get your thoughts onto paper. I think one of the big issues with anxiety is you live a lot in your head and everything seems a bigger deal than it is. And talking to people can help, but then people sometimes react. But when you write into a journal, it's completely non-judgmental. That's it. It stays there. You can say whatever you're thinking or feeling, and it's great. You know, there's always that kind of doubt in the back of your head that somebody's going to read it. So I think as long as you keep it somewhere safe, don't carry it around with you if you want to write personal things. And actually I would recommend writing personal things because I think it's good to really express your thoughts. And although, okay, the paper won't talk back to you, it actually helps you with, you know, gaining clarity on your own thoughts. So writing them down really helps kind of put them in order. So it's definitely something that is very helpful, and not only on an anxiety level, but also in getting yourself started for the day. Because the first thing you're doing is actually thinking and writing, I feel like you're more productive in that day, you're more awake and ready to work. Whereas if, you know, you just get up, go through your monotonous routine, you kind of become a little bit like a zombie. You don't really realise you're just doing the same thing every day. Whereas if you're writing something different every day, you know, you become more alert and more creative and more inspired, and it's great. It's definitely a great habit. It's also fantastic to look back on in like a year's time to see where your head was at. Another thing that I have tried is food journaling. Now this might not seem related to anxiety, but it is. A lot of people do it more for fitness reasons, to make sure that they're eating properly, keep track of their calories, etc. But for me, I used it to see what was triggering certain physical responses like nausea or dizziness, and how I felt after certain foods. I went through a really bad patch where nobody could really figure out what was wrong with me. It turned out to be stress, and I didn't realise that that kind of stress and anxiety could have such a bad effect on your physical health. So I had to kind of keep a food journal for a bit to see what was working for me and what wasn't. And the reason that it's helpful is because you then start to see patterns emerging. Once you see the patterns emerging, you can actually restrict what you're eating to then make yourself feel better. So that's definitely one that I would recommend. Obviously, one of the other kind of diaries you could do is just a normal diary, which you can do again either at the start of the day as part of morning pages or just at the end of the day, which is something that I like doing, although you're more tired, so it can be a little bit of a chore. But it's a great way to kind of process your emotions of the day and just clear your head, put it all on paper, and just go to sleep and forget about it, start the next day fresh. So that's something else I like doing. The final idea that I've got anyway for journaling is goal setting. And there's two types that I've got for this. One is like ambition goals. You know, so they're kind of goals that you dream of achieving. So let's say if you have flying anxiety, that you want to go on holiday somewhere by plane. Those kind of goals are great to put down in a diary and to mark them off when you've achieved them. And the reason that I love doing this is because at the time, it almost feels impossible. But when you look back at it and you kind of go through and see, have you achieved these kind of goals? You see that you have, and it's so refreshing and so satisfying to be like, no, I actually accomplished that. And it's so motivational because it means something that you think is impossible now, actually in a year's time you might be able to do. And that's amazing, that's incredible. So that kind of thing is a fantastic tool for anxiety because you keep it there in the back of your head that this is what you want to do. This is what's important to you. And then it also helps you break down maybe ways that you need to get to that. So maybe you need to try traveling more often in the car or go on a flight simulator, or it just helps you break down those bigger goals into something more manageable. Now that's kind of similar to an exposure plan, but it doesn't have to be the same thing. It's a way of being able to achieve a specific goal rather than just to overcome anxiety. The second type of goal setting is more specific to anxiety, which is your daily goal. This is something that I had to do on a regular basis in order to get through my education. So when I was at uni, I'd have a terrible time in lectures. Like I just couldn't be in there. I couldn't stand to just sit in silence. And the way that I had to kind of overcome it was just breaking it down into little chunks. So my starting goal would be stay in the lecture for 5 minutes before you have to go back out. And actually, although that sounds like such a short amount of time, it was really, really long, or it felt like an eternity. But that kind of goal was achievable at the time. Although it was difficult, it was doable. And when I did it, I'd feel a lot better. I'd be like, okay, managed to complete that one. Go outside, try and get rid of the anxious energy, then go back inside, do another 5 minutes. That kind of thing is really helpful with anxiety because it makes things more manageable rather than being like, okay, I have a 3-hour lecture and there's no way I can do that right now. Having those smaller goals that you go, yeah, brilliant. It makes you feel better, it's more motivational, and it also means that you can find a positive outcome from the day. You know, if you go, I didn't manage to stay in my 3-hour lecture today, that just makes you feel bad about yourself. If you go, do you know what, I managed to stay 15 minutes rather than 5 minutes, which is triple the amount of time than my original goal. That's huge. And I think that's one of the reasons that I love that kind of goal setting, and it just sometimes helps to write them down rather than have them in your head. Anyway, that's kind of all the ideas I have for journal ideas and how to use up those notebooks that maybe you have lying around, or maybe you want to get a notebook. Let me know down in the comments if you have any other ideas of what you could do with your journal or ways to help your anxiety through writing. Also let me know if you've tried any of the things that I've suggested. Give this video a like if you've enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.